Sometimes some of the best ideas are from your customers, actually, believe it or not. It's not just something that you have to come up with. We were literally building the plane as the plane was falling off the cliff. I thought that I did everything better. But the challenge is that it's not about you doing it better or faster. It's the value of your time. A huge wave of whatever hype. They don't really care about the quality at the beginning.
Hi, everyone. I'm Linda Vo, and welcome to Inspired by Success. Today, I have a guest who's reimagining how we connect and work in the digital world. Starting without venture capital, he scaled his company to over 2 million users in just 10 months, working with institutions like Harvard and Stanford while creating technology that feels genuinely human. He's built platforms focused on meaningful connections, offering leaders tools to enhance productivity and balance in their lives. A new father and a bold voice for authentic connections, he's transforming the digital landscape with a fresh, empathetic approach. Please join me in welcoming the founder of Remo.co and Hermesi, Hoyin Cheung. Welcome to the show, Hoyin.
Thanks, Linda. Super excited to be on the show. Really excited. Really looking forward to this.
Can you take us back to the beginning? What first sparked your entrepreneurial journey?
I was always into entrepreneurial pursuits, or I always wanted to start my own business. I think I was really influenced by my grandfather. My grandfather was also in business, and I was also really influenced a lot by some of the really big sort of like Bill Gates, Elon Musk, like those people were always sort of like my role models. And so I really always wanted to create my own business. And then when I came back to Hong Kong, I had the opportunity to start working on an e-commerce business with a friend of mine. And so we started working and selling stuff on Amazon. And that's kind of where I really started to kind of get that entrepreneurial bug. And of course, there's a lot of successes and failures, but Amazon was one of the lucky ones where working with a friend ended up working out, still are friends. That was a really great opportunity. So we just found products on Amazon and sold them. And this was back in the day before Amazon is like super hot and everyone's like, doing their own business on Amazon. So we started doing that back, I would say 2011, 2010, developed the business there.
Got to start early, I suppose. And then from there, where did the journey keep going to where you are now? Because you've built Hermesi and Remo.co. Is that for events? So tell me, how did you, from Amazon, still doing it, lead you to those two companies that you're working on now?
The story, how I did was, there was a product that I was working on we called it iMagnet, which is basically the first magnetic car phone mount that we made. And we made this back in 2011, 2012. And that car phone mount we sold on Amazon, but I was trying to build a brand outside of Amazon and try to get leads from outside Amazon through Instagram. And so I sort of developed this tool that could help you like automate a lot of the actions that you could do on Instagram, like posting and following and liking. And then it didn't work for the car phone brand, but people started asking me like how I'm doing it. And then I ended up building that as a business, like helping brands, helping lifestyle brands, helping, other people try to build up their social media following. And that's when I kind of started in the software world. And then through that, I worked remotely. Like my whole team was distributed. Back in 2012, 2013, I just thought I was just outsourcing people. But later, when I came down to like 2018, and it was called remote work. And so I thought, hey, remote work is this interesting trend. Why don't I create a tool to help out this remote work sort of trend that's happening? And so I created Remo. Back then, people were still using Skype out of all products. And so I was like, hey, there's got to be a better way to communicate. So I created Remo originally as a virtual office, but that didn't sell like super well at the beginning. I had to pivot, and I pivoted because I did a conference that was for virtual remote leaders. And I originally did the conference saying like, oh, hey, people can come in, they can experience the product, and maybe they'll buy it as a virtual office. So at the end of the conference, I told them, hey, you guys want to buy it? Like as a virtual office, you should use it to collaborate. And they're like, no, actually, we want to host events on this product. I'm like, host events? Oh. So I then started pivoting and started creating it from a virtual office product to a virtual events product. And that's when Remo kind of started to get traction. We pivoted in 2019. And just by luck, we finished pivoting the product by January of 2020.
Wow, just in time.
And it was so funny. I remember really clearly, like, my wife was like, is this Remo thing going to go anywhere? I'm like, okay, you're right. I don't know if it's going to go anywhere. Give me till April. of 2020. If it doesn't work by April, then fine. Like I'll close the thing and then I'll just, get a job or whatever. Which is like, okay. So I had 3 months left. And then by February, the leads really started just rolling in. They just flowed in like a huge wall of leads, like a tsunami.
Just before lockdown? Like this is before February is before lockdown though. Wow.
This is before lockdown. Yeah, we already started seeing leads. People were already thinking about that in February.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so the pandemic happened, and I can expand more about that later. So that led to Remo. And because I grew the company so quickly, I had my first son that year. My company was growing like bonkers. And so I had to hire a executive assistant. But because I went to Taiwan to have my child and I was moving around, I had to have a virtual executive assistant. And also eventually I had to have a virtual chief of staff. So I figured out how to create amazing executive support, or at least experience it during that period of time. And so I found that experience so life-changing for myself that I wanted to create something for other people. And so that's where I ended up creating Hermesi. And Hermesi is a virtual executive assistant and virtual chief of staff service that we basically recruit. We have like the most complex recruiting system. It's harder to get into Hermesi than it is to get into Harvard. And we have like a 30-day training. I work with a guy from Ritz-Carlton who did training for Ritz-Carlton to basically develop the training program with me for Hermesi based off of like high quality and, mindset and all that kind of stuff. That's how I got to Hermesi. Everything is kind of related in some sense. And I think that's probably the best way to kind of create new things.
I'm seeing that you were able to spot early opportunities, and it just seems like the right timing. I don't know if that's luck or is that just intuition that you were able to spot these opportunities early as well.
Luck. It's luck. I mean, a lot of business is luck, right? And honestly,
how did you,
it's a lot of business is just luck.
I think timing is definitely key too, but how did you grow so quickly? You said you got all these leads in before COVID hit. What strategies did you use to grow so fast as well?
A few. So one is podcasting, actually. So I became a podcast guest across, I think like 25, 30 different podcasts at that time. And also a few other things. Like I put myself on all these websites, like these listing websites. And I also did a lot of like just guerrilla marketing, like going on forums and just, anyways, at that time, there were only 3 players that were virtual events platform at that time. It was Hopin, Airmeet, and Remo. That was it. And I was in the conversation. I got myself into the conversation because the market was small. So I put in the time, put in the effort where no one cared about it. And then when the pandemic hit, they were like, oh, wow, who are the 3 virtual events platforms there? Oh, well, it's Remo. Okay, got it. Let's just take a look at Remo. It's a lot of it's luck, but people say, oh, you got product market fit. I don't call it product market fit. I call it market product fit because I didn't change the product at all. It's the market that changed, that fit my product really, really well. So the market just changed so dramatically. I was just doing my own thing. And that's when the leads just really started coming in. It was luck. I mean, I'll be honest, it was luck.
Wow. And then I think you acted fast too to get things done. But you were able to hit profitability within 4 months without VC money. What was the game plan from day one?
2 months. It was like 2 months.
2 months.
2 months we hit profitability. I mean, we were growing. Leads were coming in so fast. I couldn't hire people quick enough. The game plan was survive. The product I just finished, but demands from the users were like, oh, we expect this to be like a very well mature product. And so we were literally building the plane as the plane was falling off the cliff. Like people were hosting 300, 400, 500, 1,000 person events. And our product was at that time not that mature. So it was breaking down when there's too many people. And like there's a key learning that I learned was just like when there's a huge wave of something, a huge wave of whatever hype or whatever, they don't really care about the quality at the beginning during this huge like wave or hype cycle. They only care about it when the hype cycle kind of dies down. And then they're like, okay, because when the hype cycle is super high up, everyone's like, oh, I just need something. Like there's this urgency that I need something. So they're willing to kind of be okay with the product sucking, just being shit. But afterwards, when the hype or the urgency is down and people are making rational, normal decisions, they care a lot about product quality. Luckily, we had enough time to really like mature the product, make it stable, improve it. get it out from this sort of spaghetti code phase into this more proper phase. Spaghetti code, it's like, imagine you built a house very quickly, right? And if you built a house very quickly, most likely you didn't do the foundations right. You didn't do any of the groundwork right. So you're building off of shaky ground. So that's basically what spaghetti code looks like in an early MVP. And you have to redo the housing. You have to redo the foundation so that the software is maintainable. Like you can maintain it well, easily.
So you had to go on overdrive and hiring as many resources possible virtually as well, I'm guessing, just to get up and running and smoothly.
Yeah, hiring was one of my biggest problems, which is why my EA and chief of staff was super helpful for me, because we had to spin up different recruiting funnels for different roles. And it was very time consuming to interview people. Interviewing people is the most time consuming thing. It's the most valuable thing. Like, you need to invest in that, but it just takes, in my opinion, it takes an outsized amount of time to get that, at least in the moment of when you need people urgently. It's a very outsized investment. And that's when I was like, okay, when I got an executive assistant, she really helped me streamline the whole entire thing. Like, she basically booked it on my calendar, pre-screened candidates for me, developed the whole funnel, like who was going to be interviewed, what were the tests, what are the requirements, like basically developed these things in a very, very short period of time. And that helped me from tripping up, because I don't know if you've done recruiting, but sometimes when you do recruiting, you don't know exactly what you want until after the first few interviews. I don't know if you've had that experience, but I sometimes had that experience. Some roles are very clear, but some roles were like, I was trying to hire VPs, like a VP of sales, a VP of marketing. Like, you don't exactly know what is the type or the skill sets that you need until after you've interviewed a few people. There's just so much uncertainty, right? There's just, how do you fit? Like, what are people saying in the market? How does that thing say in the market fit to your job description? Are you asking maybe too much, or you can't afford all the things that you want? I feel like there's some gaps that you got to fill. And that was an experience that I was able to kind of cut that period short by reaching out to people as well, talking to them about it before kind of developing the job description and getting an idea of like, what is it that I really needed?
Yeah, I think we learn as we go as well. When I was hiring at a process, I'd just go into that role, other people's description page, and then get the best parts that I wanted and then glue them together and mash it for the ideal candidate for me. So great that you did it so fast. But most startups burn cash to grow. How did you bootstrap by scaling so quickly? Did you make any bad decisions with money, or did most of those decisions work out really well?
So in general, I've just been an individual that, just kind of like yourself, Linda, like, I run a business. I feel like I'm more of a business person rather than a startup tech person. A startup tech person is someone who like, let's go get funding and let's just burn money. My whole journey has about building businesses and having to balance your profits and losses at the end of each month. And so managing it like a normal business. And I started that way with the social media Instagram service that I had. I was able to leverage some existing tools and create a business through that rather than invest in heavily in technology. Once that started working, I then invested in technology afterwards, once I got cash flow. Of course, right? Once you get cash flow, you can do whatever you want. And so it's like building like a normal business where you build it like literally dollar over dollar. Like, each month you increase the amount of profit you have remaining, and then you invest it. So I was able to find a CTO. I was able to run a business without hiring a co-founder because I already had a business that was actually creating money. And so it's not that I don't believe in startups and VC funded business. It's just that it's two different ways of doing business and two different, I don't know, I guess you could say lifestyles, and two different ways of just running things. And I've done the VC funded thing. I actually am advising a company that's going to raise money, but it's like a moonshot. But I like bootstrapping because it gives you a lot of freedom, and also you're just trying to build a business slowly. Many of the best businesses are built slowly and are fully owned. Warren Buffett, all these famous guys, they all own their business near 100%. They don't need funding, and they grew it very slowly. And I think that's okay. And I think that's a fine way of building business. So that's kind of like my thought process. So the businesses might not be as exciting. They might not be as interesting, but it's trying to find those opportunities and being a little bit more thoughtful and trying to find something that could potentially open up for that.
You mentioned the tools. I was just intrigued about when you said the tools that you developed for social to help grow. What's the name of that tool, and are you still using it to help grow? Because I find that as a business, automation for social media. There are tools out there, but I find that a low value task that my VA is doing, and I wish I could automate that so that she could do other things, but you mentioned that tool to help you. What was that tool?
So Riley Social was the company. Now we left that sort of realm because it just became very saturated for us. There are some tools out there, but I haven't been in that, at least for Instagram and Facebook, I haven't been in that game for a while. So I need to kind of go around and look back. But for LinkedIn, I know of a few that can do automation. But I don't think LinkedIn is like the right tool for you because you're mostly like very consumer, right? So that might be a little different. But the other ones, I'm not as familiar as I was before about it, like for consumer, because most of the time what I'm working on like very B2B stuff.
B2B,
now,
executives.
Yeah. I'm not doing as much consumer as I would have liked. I would still like to do consumer, by the way. I'm just not doing as much of it as I would like.
I'm just interested because you mentioned the Amazon thing that you're still doing, and then you've got these two other companies. I mean, they say that you need to focus to be able to grow, but I don't think so, because if you can delegate. But what are your thoughts of that? And you've grown from 5 to 100 people in a short matter of time. What was your biggest mistake in growth and scaling as well? So sorry, they're two different questions. What are your thoughts on the focus part of the business aspect when you got multiple different things happening, such as the consumer, Amazon 100%. Stuff, and then you got the B2B? So
100%.
What are your thoughts on the focus?
Obviously, you do have to be focused. To me, it's about your time allocation. So for the e-commerce business, I pretty much spend no time on that at all, like very, very little time. So it's all about time allocation. Where are you spending majority or the time that you need on things? For Remo and Hermesi right now, I'm spending a good amount of time right now on Hermesi, but I still spend a lot of time on Remo as well.
Do you find that like you're trying to focus on, like for me, if I was in that, I'd be focusing, I think, on what's going to be potential and more profitable? Is that what you do? Or is that your focus on how much time you're spending on each company?
I focus on where I can add the most value and impact, for sure. That's like one area. And to kind of go back to your question, like what was the mistakes? Like, yeah, definitely. I made a lot of mistakes. When things grow so fast, you're even more likely to make mistakes because you have less time to really think about them and you're just making decisions. So what I learned was like, you can make decisions quickly as long as they are doors that you can enter and then come back out from, meaning that they're reversible decisions. And decisions that are irreversible, or not, it's not irreversible, it's just very expensive to undo, basically. Then those are ones that you need to spend a lot more time just slowly kind of like thinking about it. Don't make a quick decision and like that. So those fast decisions, I made plenty of mistakes, plenty. But I was able to unwind them because I felt that, okay, well, it's not that bad of a decision and we just have to learn along the way. So because you're growing so fast, you're basically collapsing your learning in a very, what would have probably taken a lot longer to a much more shorter period of time because you're experiencing the growth of the company within a shorter period of time. So I did try to think about how to improve my decision-making abilities after this experience. So I did a lot of research. I read a bunch of these books about how to make decisions. And so then I created a sort of like a regimen that goes through step by step. How do you analyze your situation in order to come up with a decision? So typically people say use pros and cons list, right? But the problem with pros and cons list is that it's a very one-dimensional way, and it can easily introduce confirmation bias into your decision-making process. And so I've basically collected all these different ways of creating decisions and sort of put it all together and then curated my own decision-making process that involves different things. So that was really helpful because then I had a guide. So at least I could just sit down and then just chart it out. And it's like a decision tree type thing. And you just lay out all the options. And this changed like the way how I made decisions. Before I was like, oh, out of these decisions I thought in my head, I'll do this. But after doing this decision tree exercise, it unveiled so many other decisions and made me think through the whole thing in a much more different lens. It drastically improved my decision making by a lot. So that was really helpful.
Do you share that guide? Because it sounds like a valuable tool.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, of course.
That would be a game changer these
I can talk about it now, or I can share the document in some other way.
You can share it, and then I'll share it with the audience. Yeah, if you like.
Yeah, sure. I can share it later.
Awesome. Many founders, the ones that are struggling to scale, I know that they're struggling to actually let go of some tasks. What was the hardest thing you had to do in order to delegate as well? Because I see business as a game. You level up, and then certain levels that you get to increase productivity, you have to delegate certain tasks. And as a founder, you know which tasks you need to delegate. But what was the hardest thing you had to delegate?
I mean, pretty
Sometimes
much
they
everything.
say it's the founders are
Everything.
bottlenecks. Sometimes I've seen that.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like I was that bottleneck. It was everything. I thought that I did everything better. Like everything down to like, oh, just getting through a spreadsheet, like doing something on a spreadsheet and putting it here and there, and like just really basic things. I thought I did it better than everyone else, faster than everyone else. But the challenge is that it's not about you doing it better or faster. It's the value of your time. Meaning, let's say your productivity is this high for a task, and somebody else's productivity is this high, right? But the value of that time is much more than that. The value is much more than the time itself. So even if you gave it to someone and their productivity was much lower, imagine you doing like not just one task, but a whole bunch of tasks where a lot of people, even though we're doing it slower and maybe not as good as you, but because you're distributing it across a much larger team, you're able to get more done. And because you're able to get more done, then your productivity and your output increases. So not everything is urgent. If something is urgent, then yeah, sure. If you want to do it yourself, do it yourself. But not everything is urgent. And so what a lot of people mistake is everything is urgent. So I have to do everything myself and it has to be really, really good. But if you really think about, do I need to do this right now? Like, is this going to really impact the business? That's worth my time. Meaning like it will make more money or it will achieve my goals faster than the value of time that I have. Most of the time, 80% of the tasks is no, like you can give it to somebody else to do. And then 20 to 25% of the task is like, okay, yeah, you should do it. Like you should do it. Yeah. And then eventually, then what ends up happening is your mind then starts to calm down. Not everything is flying through your mind like at 100 miles an hour. And that affects your decision making. Because when your mind is calm and you can focus, and you're not distracted, then you can then make better decisions. And also the other benefits, like you eat better, you can pay attention to things better, you can observe the finer details of things. And that's what the side benefits are, which a lot of people kind of miss out. But a big one is you're making decisions much more better, in my opinion.
Yeah. And you can flow through things as well and think more clearly. Because when I've handed over a lot of my tasks that I knew that were low value tasks, it just makes you feel so much better and you got more time and more freedom to think strategically and be more fulfilled as well. Now, you mentioned books. What books do you recommend? Because I think one of the best productivity books for entrepreneurs would be Buy Back Your Time from Dan Martell. Do you have any other book recommendations that really changed, with like a game changer for you?
First one is this one.
Oh, How to Talk
Just
So
kidding.
Little Kids Will Listen.
Just kidding. That's just on my table right now because I have kids. Just kidding.
That was How to Talk to Kids or something.
Yeah, no. But there are some things in there. Yeah, that's for the parents, for the podcast listeners. But some of them actually do work with people, like with adults, by the way.
Wait, just for the listeners that didn't see the video, what was that book that you just held up as not so serious?
Oh, yeah. So just as a joke, it was How to Talk So Little Kids Will Listen, a survival guide to life with children ages 2 to 7.
Oh, ooh, okay. I got to get that.
This one's pretty good. It's called Decisive, and it's by Chip and Dan Heath, How to Make Better Choices in Life and Work. And then this one's by Annie Duke, How to Decide by Annie Duke, and it is simple tools for making better choices. I based a lot of my decision framework off of this lady here. She's pretty smart. She actually used to be a poker player.
Oh.
And so decision making in poker is actually very similar to decision making in business. She actually just joined, I believe, First Round Capital, which is a pretty famous VC firm.
Your First Round Capital, did you say?
No. There's a VC firm called First Round Capital, which is a relatively famous Series A VC firm.
Wow, that's awesome. I'm going to check out those books. Let's talk about some challenges as well. Continue on. Many founders actually hide their struggles. What's one of your biggest ongoing challenges that you're still working on or that you've overcome?
I mean, just like every business owner, it's a lot about growing the business, finding hidden opportunities, finding things that work. Finding things that work is probably one of the biggest things that is always a challenge in business. And that's kind of like the R&D portion of like just grinding and just figuring out if some things work or not. And that goes from marketing, go to market, product market fit. That side of the business is something that I've always felt is sort of like the most challenging part, and it's different for different businesses.
But you run like multiple companies and have a young family. How do you make time? Like, is that one of the challenges as well, making time for both the family and the business life?
I mean, it is a challenge, but I've kind of got a little bit more better handle on it because of the help with my executive assistant and time blocking and everything. So I have a really good schedule, and my EA really helps me across not just work, but personal as well. Like, she knows my kids. She knows all the details about my kids. And so she helps me with a lot of personal things, with like getting the kids activities to do and getting activities for all of us to do and dealing with the bills for all the kids stuff. It's just pretty comprehensive. And the reason why I worked it that way is because nowadays, I mean, I can see you work from home. A lot of people work from home or some form of hybrid. And that means that your work and your personal life are more intertwined. But the way how we address that in our work life hasn't really accounted for that sort of intertwining as much as it was before. Before, it's like you go to work and, hey, that's work. I just can forget or not forget, but separate it out really well. But nowadays, you can't do that. My philosophy is like, you need to have a really good home life and everything's very organized, or at least it's under control, for you to have a very productive work life. And so that's sort of the approach that we do. And when I think about like executive assistant,
she sounds like an amazing executive assistant. I can definitely relate to that. I have a fantastic assistant that does.
Do you have
everything.
Kids?
Yeah, I do, but I don't do like my executive assistant doesn't handle any of that stuff. I think she's got enough tasks on her plate for the podcast and the business. So I thought, it'd be good to have a house manager.
You can always get another one.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I was looking at your website, Hermercy one, and there was an AI element too. So I want to talk about innovation and trust. And now everyone's talking about AI and how powerful it is. I love it. How are you using it to help people connect, but not actually replacing them? Because I saw that you've got AI part element in your plan. Can you explain a little bit about what you do with the Hermercy? Because there was 3 different plans, but one was having an actual like assistant that you've fully trained and vetted, but then there's also the AI element. I'm curious to know about the AI element as well.
Yeah, sure. So just to be really clear to the audience, Hermercy provides human executive assistants that are very tech savvy at using tech tools. So you can think of them as like a AI augmented individual that uses a lot of tech tools and, AI in order to do the work. AI currently is just like a tool, but my belief is that there's a lot of things that AI cannot do. Technology, when there's a new technology that comes around, it's always been viewed as like a panacea. Oh my God, it's going to solve world peace, world hunger. It's going to solve all our problems. The reality is like it usually doesn't do that. It just solves, I don't know, some range between 50 and 80%, something like that. I don't know. But there's always like a gap. And we have yet to know what that gap is. Now, I have some speculation around where that gap is. And my speculation is the executive assistant job will still exist, but it will be doing more higher level function, executive function, relationship management, and managing people. I think that's where I think AI will struggle a little bit. And it's also because at the end of the day, we will yearn to have some form of human interaction. When everything is so efficient, everything can be done for you, the last part that people will always do business with or what they're thinking about is your authenticity. I mean, it's happening today. Is your brand or is your voice authentic? And what that really means is, can we build a relationship? To me, the last frontiers is this relationship part. And I think that is pretty hard to replace. What we do is we try to make sure that our EAs are actually, we recruit them based off of their ability to become a chief of staff, not to be an EA, because that job is going to change.
Yeah.
Right. But the chief of staff is not just any chief of staff. It's a highly tech enabled chief of staff, meaning that they're very, very good at handling technology. What happens is that they may end up, and this is a future which is uncertain, right? But this is kind of like how I'm thinking about the future. Tools are tools at the end of the day. You still need someone to interface with it. It's either you as a CEO are interfacing with all your tools, or you have someone to help you interface it with it. The EA in the future is sort of this individual who will curate all the tools for you and curate all the different things regarding the tools and the workflows that you have. And so that person is still the one that's kind of managing everything and also managing relationships. A CEO is not always going to be tech savvy. Like some of them are going to be tech savvy, but how many have the time to be tech savvy to do those things? At the end of the day, like probably that is a task that they shouldn't be doing. That's kind of how I present it, which is like, yes, they have to incorporate AI, and based off of how AI will grow, more and more of their tasks will become transitioned into AI itself. And so they are tech enabled, so then they can make that transition the easiest. And I'm training them to become chief of staff so that they also on the top end also train to do more executive function. And that's how if you think about the job description, that's how the job description grows. It encroaches because of AI, but it grows on the top because of our training.
What skill sets do you think are crucial for a great EA? What do you look for in a successful one? Because I've had many different remote staffs and virtual assistants as well, and I've had to let go of so many, but I've kept one amazing one. And for me personally, I could say that there's so many different skills and attributes that make her so successful and just a major part of the business and my growth. And I think there's certain skill sets that I could see in that. What do you think the skill sets make a great EA?
There's about 9 things that we look for.
9, wow.
But I'll tell you the first 3. Proactive, intellectually curious, a lifelong learner, and tech savvy. These are the 3 main things that we look for. And those are more important than everything else. Everything else is sort of, in my mind, table stakes. Are you coachable? Are you detail oriented? These are all, in the realm of what we do, those are table stakes, not oh, you should be very good at that. No, this is something, that's the baseline. The 3 things I mentioned are the 3 things that we really, really heavily look for. And so we go through 1,000 resumes a month to try to look for those 3 things.
Wow. Human vetting them yourself, or are you using tools to vet them as well? I think
it's becoming increasingly harder.
Yeah, because everyone's using AI. A lot of people are using AI for their descriptions as well, so you can easily tell that one that's lazy. For me personally, if I saw that, read an article about that too, so you can tell.
So we've got a way to do it, but I'm not going to share it because other people will know. We have a way that doesn't use people. It's harder for people to use ChatGPT and stuff like that, and we have multiple tests that help us out. And then we have a live task assessment. And then we have a final interview.
I like that. Looking forward, you've built several different companies now. What would you tell your first time founder self, the younger version of you?
I would say just make money. Find a business that you can make money with. The business you start is not the business you end. It may not be. It might be, but it may not be. Don't be so worried about, there's competition. There's this or that, because that's what I worried about. Just try, do something, learn, make some money, build this machine of cash flow. Hopefully you'll eventually hit on a machine that's relatively just keeps running, that requires very little help from your end, that can run a decent amount of time. Because a lot of businesses, they kind of go up and down. They go up and down. And you got to be lucky to get out at the top before it goes down and before it gets saturated. And that's happened at Amazon. Products just get saturated, and China comes in and they start flooding the market with cheap products, and everything gets commoditized to a certain degree. So you have to have some kind of exit plan. The money that you make might be the money that you spend in order to keep the company afloat when that cycle is finishing. So just start practicing and just building businesses, treat it as a practice.
Looking forward in your next 5 years, what excites you the most? What's to come?
I think AI is pretty exciting for sure. What everyone's saying. Obviously, there's a lot of risk. There's a lot of existential risk. I'm not trying to be a doomsday person, AI doomsday person or anything, but it's not just about that. It's just more there's a lot of things about AI that are threatening that we have yet to find solutions for, but I'm confident that we will find those solutions for that. It's kind of like Airbnb. Remember when Airbnb first came out? What was your first reaction? Was it oh my gosh, that sounds like a bad idea? What did you think?
Yeah, it's someone's house, is it safe? Is it going to be? You question all these things. Now It's a totally different story, though.
Now it's normal. And you had all these fears about, which are legit, right? They're all legit fears, but at the end of the day, they didn't matter. Because the whole concept of Airbnb is that they're trying to make money. And if they're vetted properly, then that eliminates all that problems. So those things I just talked about, these things, we just don't know what those versions are in AI. And those have yet to be created to fight against bad actors that are using AI that might, for example, call up your grandparents and then use your voice to say, hey, I need money. Can you please transfer money to this bank account? But by the way, these things already happen without AI, just to let you know. So what that means is that it's just better. So we just have to create better defenses or better ways to defend that. But to me, that's one form of fear or concern. I think those things will be resolved.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, there's always a white hat. There's a dark hat. There's always a person that's going to be doing the opposite. So it's an exciting space to see. How would you personally define success? What does success mean to you? Has it changed over the years as well?
I think to me, success, I think there's definitely a financial component, but for me, success is like I have this list of goals, and those list of goals are really across multiple dimensions. So like I've got 4 categories. It's family, wealth, health, and mind. So family, I have some goals, with my kids, find a hobby to do with eldest son once a week. But in general, it's like having an engaged, spend high quality time with my family, members, like my wife and my kids. That's the goal. And so like my wife is like, find a hobby to do with her once a week, for example. Wealth, simple, just some revenue goal or whatever. Cash flow you want to give to yourself. Health, my goal was to get to 14% body fat. So it was more of like a health goal. And then mind is just join a mastermind or take one short self-retreat a year or something like that. So it's just like those types of things. If I can achieve those things, I'm pretty happy.
Then you'll set different goals each time, right? It's always continuous growth.
I set different goals each year. It's not just business, right? It's like all encompassing. So it's goals across the board. Some people have 6 categories, some people have 5. Like you can just come up with the ones that fit you for that year and for that time of your life.
Yeah, definitely. That's why I like to find out about individuals. Like every person's definition of success is different based on what they're going through. And so the journey is always interesting to learn for me. Is there a key message you'd like to leave our audience with today?
I would say like if you find yourself overwhelmed or you find yourself like unable to or struggling to achieve your goals, a lot of it is how distracted you are and whether you're able to think through something or see something a little bit differently. Because if something's not working, you have to pivot or you have to do something. But if you can't see the pivot and you're not thinking broadly enough and you're too much in the weeds, that really leads to you kind of just hitting the same nail that just doesn't go into the wood and it just doesn't work. Or hitting a nail into a steel bar. It's not going to work. In order to do that, you have to talk to different people. You have to give space for your head and your mind to look, observe, learn, talk to other people to get new information in order to process that and come up with something different or adjust in terms of what you're doing. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to talk to new people. It could be meaning like spending more time researching competitors or looking at where the market's heading, or like it's still time spent in the business, but it's more strategic. And I think that's really important. And also do more experiments, right? Like do experiments in different places in different areas that could lead to new information for you. Because that's how I pivoted for Remo, is that I did this virtual conference. My product originally was virtual office, but then somebody came to me and said, hey, I'm doing this virtual conference for remote leaders. And I said, oh, hey, why don't we do it in Remo? Even though it's an office, but I'll modify it so that it looks like a conference tool. It looks like a conference. Like you can network and all that stuff and move around. My product, just to give people more of a description, imagine it's like a 2D map, top down, and you're looking at the floor plan of a venue. And you can double click on a table and you'll move to that table. And whoever's sitting on that table, which you'll see, they're like little circles, you'll see their videos, but you only see the videos of the people that are sitting at your table. So you can double click on a different table, and you'll move there. Like your little circle avatar will move to that table. Originally, it was for an office because things were not working well for Remo from a virtual office. Like nobody wanted to buy it. It was kind of dead. So I made this bet and trying to see if this is a different angle. It's a multiple bet. The first bet is, well, let's bet to see if I can get some virtual office clients. The second bet is, well, let's try a new use case. It was like, I had several reasons why to do it, to invest time. But if I was so busy, I would never been able to like make that decision and to try to spend the proper time on that. And then realizing that that was actually the market I should be going for.
And you got the feedback from the people as well, the request. So that's perfect. You got the feedback and then you were able to act quickly. That's another thing. So I like that. I admire that. And the risk.
Talking to customers.
Took the risk. Yeah, talking to customers, taking that risk and acting fast. I think it seems like the 3 key elements of how you were able to succeed so fast as well.
Yeah, sometimes some of the best ideas are from your customers, actually, believe it or not. It's not just something that you have to come up with. I feel like the job of a business, of somebody who is a CEO, whatever, is not necessarily to come up with the idea themselves, but is to curate the idea by gathering customer information, what's happening in the market, and this and this and this and this and this, and then putting it all together and saying, okay, this is what I want to do, or I see the market and fits my skill sets that is a really good thing for us to do for the next 6 months or 1 year or whatever.
I like that. It's been a very interesting conversation. It's time to wrap it up. Guys, if you found this valuable, please share it with someone that will find it useful. And if you haven't already, please hit that follow button and hit the subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. Let me know your thoughts on do you need an EA or virtual assistant yourself? Finally, Hoyin, where can people find you and follow you if they need to?
They can follow me on LinkedIn and also the website, hermessi.com. Reach out to me on LinkedIn if you got questions. That'd be great. That's like the perfect place.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time.